Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Steve, and joining me, as always, my almost too awesome to be believed co-host, the greatest referee in all of professional wrestling. I'll go ahead and say that. I usually say the greatest referee in all of indie wrestling, but fuck it. Can you think of a ref who's better than Doc? I can't. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Doc Gregory.
Thanks, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm very well. How are
Yeah.
you?
Me? Oh, you know me. Jobs busting my ass. The cats are constantly meowing. The wife is always pestering me. I got a wart so bad on
Oh
the back of
no.
my ass I can't even sit down. But you know me. I can't complain.
Exactly. You know what you sound like? You sound like every other person who lives in Hagerstown. And every
I heard
member
that.
of my family and me, everybody around here talks like that.
Yeah, I actually heard that one a long time ago during a Rodney Dangerfield HBO stand-up. He had a whole bunch of young comedians, and one of them was Dom Irrera. And he come out there and he was doing that. I got a rash so bad on my ass I can't even sit down. But you know me, I can't complain. And I'm like, but it just was one of those jokes that stuck with me forever, and I use
Yeah.
that from every now and again. I'm glad you actually asked me how I was because you set up right for it.
It's a great joke.
Yeah, I
It's a
fed you. I
great.
fed you. I fed you a little bit by
Yeah,
playing it down.
well, sometimes you got to feed the baby face, that's part of the job.
That's right.
Um, Speaking of feeding the baby face, let's talk about wrestling. So,
Yay.
so according to my records, which consisted of just watching the show and then looking at what I wrote down, you won the prediction poll this month by 1 point.
1 point in one day.
Yeah, because my actually, in terms of just the total number that we got right, neither one of us did great. But you got, according to my count, you got three picks right, and I got two picks right. Is that your
Yeah, we
assessment?
pretty much agreed on everything
Yeah.
except for the IC the Intercontinental title match with Dolph Ziggler and The Miz, and we disagreed on the Divas title match, which is a three-way. And both of us still picked differently, but both of us got that one
We
wrong.
both got it wrong. Yeah. So yeah, let me run through the results really quickly and tally what we picked and which ones we got right and which ones we got wrong. We'll just talk very generally about the Night of Champions show, and then we'll get into more specifics with Raw like we usually do. So, Night of Champions began with the tag team title match. It was the Usos defending against the Dust Brothers, Goldust and Stardust, and this was the first match. We both got this one right. We both picked that there would be new champions with Goldust and Stardust, and that is in fact what happened. Then there was the U.S. title match, which was Sheamus defending against Cesaro. We both got this one wrong. We both predicted Cesaro, but actually Sheamus won and kept the title. And I thought, well, let's go ahead and stop and talk about this match because I thought this was the match of the night. I thought this was a really good match, and I was surprised at how much I liked this match.
I agree with you. I mean, Sheamus really stepped it up a bit, where I took notice that he actually did carry himself a little bit different. And he did it again. When we get to Raw, I mean, it seems like for some reason
Yeah.
he's putting a little bit more fire up underneath that belt, because maybe he's hearing some of the critics saying, you just aren't really cutting it, and you came this close to losing that belt to someone else. So, but it's a shame, Cesaro, I'm a huge fan of his, but yeah, they really kicked it up a notch on Night of the Champions, and that was amazing. I actually went back and watched that match again. Well, I watched the pay-per-view actually twice, just to review it and kind of look a little bit more into detail into the stuff they were doing.
Yeah, you can always tell. At least one of my tests is when Ashley watches a show with me, and when she starts getting into a match, because she's not a wrestling fan at all. She's not like certainly not as into it as we are. But I can usually talk her into watching the pay-per-views with me when I watch them live, and she got into the Sheamus Cesaro match by the end. Like she was, after that was over, she was like, "That was a good match," and it really was. I mean, it was a really terrific match, and it was good to see because it was. If you had asked me beforehand, I would not have picked that to be the best match of the show,
hmm
and it definitely was. I thought, and Sheamus deserves a lot of credit for that because he definitely picked it up.
Yeah. I also really like the tag team match.
Yeah,
Dana got on me a little bit because she thought I was going crazy because I was just giving Goldust so much accolades on his ability and how he has really like what I consider to be one of his best run of his whole career is that it really means something and that he's in some of the best shape of his life and he's still like hanging and banging with these young guys that still
yeah.
go toe to toe with him. I was like, I'm just so impressed because I've been following him for a long time since his early WCW days. So
Yeah, well, think about it, right? He debuted. Dustin Rhodes debuted, I think, in 1991. So he's been wrestling for over 23 years. That's a hell of a long career. And for him to still be able to get in the ring and go like he can go and have fucking awesome matches the way he's able to have them, and his timing is just awesome, and he has such, I mean, he gets right up and gets right into everything and hangs with all the young kids, and I mean, he is fucking amazing. And when you think about like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it seemed like he was done.
hmm.
You know, after his last run as Gold Dust, it seemed like, well, that was nice, and now, you know, have a nice retirement there, Dustin. And now here he is back and fucking kicking ass. I agree with you. I don't know how you could praise him too much. I mean, he's just, for a guy his age and as long as he's been around, he is fucking killing it.
hmm. Yeah, he made an impact when he first came in as Goldust and made a good run with the Intercontinental title then. But then, just things kind of changed for him, and he became really a running joke for the longest time. He'd always be involved in the comedy sketches. Even if it's teaming up with Booker or whatever, he was just really more comic relief.
Yeah.
And what I really love about this go round is that there's no there's no comedy aspect to it at all. I mean, there's a little bit of that crazy thing, but there's nothing funny there. And so it's like I take the angle a little bit more seriously. It's good that that WWE is not pushing him again down that comedy road. That they're actually allowing him to grow with the character. And then the new face paint, I'm digging that. I mean, it looks great.
I thought that was really cool too, like the mostly black with just a little bit of gold. I thought that was great. And it's, yeah, like you say, I mean, he started out as like a really sort of weird gimmick, and then he became like a comedy gimmick. But this time, he's getting over almost entirely on the wrestling, which is just awesome because he's still Gold Dust. He still has the entrance. He still has like the sort of weirdness in the promos, and he's obviously still playing a character. But he's over now because of the work, because what he does between the ropes, and that just is awesome to see. Like as someone like me and you, I know who like most of what we enjoy is during the matches. To see a guy like Goldust, who could have easily been nothing but a gimmick, have this sort of second career based on being able to still work. That's just awesome. I mean, he's one of my favorite parts of the show because it's just amazing to watch him.
hmm
Next on Night of Champions was the Intercontinental title match. Dolph defending the Intercontinental title versus The Miz. This was one of the ones that we differed on, and you called this one right. You predicted that Miz would win the title, and he did. He didn't keep it very long, as we'll talk about, but Miz did win the title. And this was a decent match. I thought that this match would have maybe seemed a little better if it hadn't come right after the Sheamus-Cesaro match,
hmm.
which was just a great match. But this was still a pretty good match, I thought.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to kind of calm things down. They put the Divas match right before the Heavyweight Championship, and I got
Yeah.
I got that placement there, but they needed some kind of fluffer there. They could have brought like Adam Rose and the Bunny out to just really die things down,
Yeah.
and then put that match on. But oh yeah, I had full faith that the Miz would recapture that Intercontinental Championship, and of course Damien Mizdow there in his corner, and they are really becoming one and the same. They're becoming each other's doppelgangers. So
Yeah.
look for Miz to either grow a beard or Damien go the way of me. The beard goes dodo.
Yeah, that is really the only difference between them as far as their look now, is that Damien still has the beard. Now, next on Night of Champions was, supposedly it was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, but of course, as most of us probably know by now, and if you didn't know before, you know if you watched Raw, Roman Reigns had to have emergency surgery Saturday morning, completely legit, not a work. The guy was really in the hospital. He had a hernia. He had to have emergency surgery. He's out probably for the rest of the year. I would be shocked if he came back this year. It sounds like he's going to be on the shelf for a while. So the match with Seth Rollins didn't happen, but Rollins came out and claimed victory by forfeit, which doesn't matter anyway as far as our poll because we both picked the same result anyway. We both picked that Rollins would win, so we both get a point for that. Although I do think Doc deserves a little extra credit because you did say it would not be a clean win.
I was thinking that. I was actually bragging about that. I said that there was going to be some type of interference, and I was right. I just didn't realize that outside interference was going to come in the way of a hernia.
Hernia!
But it doesn't matter. That's half credit because I got something right there.
Yeah. But I tell you what though, not reflected in the results, but one of my favorite parts of the Night of Champions show, after Seth Rollins comes out and claims his forfeit over Roman Reigns, we get the hoped for and long awaited return of Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose came back. I love that he pulled up backstage in a taxi. And like how perfect is that timing? his hated enemy who put him on the shelf puts out an open challenge, and at that very second he pulls up backstage in a taxi. But I loved it. I thought that whole Ambrose Rollins.
He was probably watching the network on his phone, which you can get on your mobile app on your iPhone. Yeah. You can get the network for only $9.99. And speaking of $9.99, I'm really digging the new theme song they got going on during Raw. $9.99.
That's true. He was watching the show on his phone, and he was like, "Okay, come on." He put out an open challenge. Just pull up. I thought that was great, and I loved to hear the crowd response to Dean when he got out of the cab and they saw that it was him and he was coming out and he was back. Man, the crowd just went nuts, which was music to my ears because I really think Dean should be the next top guy. It's great to see him get that kind of reaction.
Well, they didn't really have much choice in the matter. There he was, I guess, filming his movie. They ran the angle where, his head went through the cinder blocks, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
I mean, now you got Roman Reigns go down. So you got Daniel out for the foreseeable future. Roman Reigns was their up and comer. He's down. I always said that this is really going to be a race between which Shield member can make it to WrestleMania. And of course, my money's still on Dean Ambrose being the one guy to get to WrestleMania before Roman Reigns does. I think the whole storyline as we know it right now, or as we possibly could know it, or what they intend to do is gonna be rewritten. It's gonna have to be.
Yeah, and as a Dean Ambrose fan, I mean, I feel bad, but at the same time, I know that Roman Reigns is okay. Like, he didn't die, he's just injured, so he's going to be fine. So I don't feel too bad, because I think, it's so great that Roman Reigns got hurt, because now, they have no choice but to go with Dean Ambrose. Like, it's one of those things that it all sort of falls in just perfectly in place, But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Dean, and it was awesome to see him back. And hopefully he'll be there. He'll be back for a while, and they will push him at the level that it seems like the crowd responses to him warrant. I mean, I think people are ready to accept him as a top level guy, with just maybe a little additional nudge. He just needs a little bit more to get up right at that tippy top level. But he's right there.
Maybe tone down the lunatic a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say maybe after they move him on from the Rollins storyline, maybe dial that back just a little bit, Next on Night of Champions was the Mark Henry versus Rusev match. We both called that one right. Rusev won. Nothing really special about that. Next, after that, was Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton. Again, we both got that one right. Not a bad match, but, I mean, nothing really super special about that either. And
I do want to actually say during the Rusev and Mark Henry match, They did the national anthem. Lillian Garcia sang that.
Yes.
I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Watching Mark Henry actually move to tears, moved my ass to tears, and it just was. I was caught up in that whole patriotic moment right there, and I thought the match went exactly as I thought it was because I love Rusev. I was bragging about him last night, calling him a beast and a mountain of a man. I'm like, look at that guy, man, that is a man right there. I was just with Dana in the room, so I talked to nobody and hope she's listening.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought that up. The Lillian singing the national anthem. I mean, and I mean, oh, she sang the shit out of that too. I mean, that was really, really an impressive version of that song. And yeah, Mark did seem like he was, genuinely moved by it, and the whole bringing in his Olympic career. I think all of that is great. Because I mean, it reminds you that Mark Henry is a legitimate, legendary athlete. Like, he's not just, some big guy who wrestles and, had the sexual chocolate gimmick that he had back in the Attitude Era. I mean, this guy is a legitimate world-class athlete. And it was nice that they took that opportunity to remind us of that,
He got to sleep with Mae Young.
And father the hand that she gave birth to, The hand, unfortunately, now I guess I mean, maybe Mark takes care of it now because the hand's mother is no longer with us. But
I think it goes on display during WrestleMania weekend. They just drag it with them.
A hand.
Or Joey Styles is going to do it on the episode of Warehouse.
Yes.
They got it in storage somewhere. The hand.
They're going to open like a drawer and unwrap some bubble wrap, and there will be the fucking hand. Yeah, so Jericho and Orton, we both got that one right. Whatever. The only thing I notice about the Orton Jericho match is that it seems like Randy Orton just loves to do that finish where he RKO's the guy in the middle of a dive off the top rope, which is a really awesome looking spot, but it seems like he does it like all the time now. Like anytime Orton has a big match, that's always the finish that they use is the guy's jumping off the top rope at him, and he turns it into the RKO.
And watching that match, it made me. I watched the finish, and I watched Jericho climb up to the top of the ropes, and I kind of got my mindset that that's what Randy was going to do. He's going to hit him with the RKO. Yeah. But then when Jericho jumped, what seemed odd to me was I've never really recall Jericho doing any maneuver off the top rope where he would have done a swan dive outward.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things, it's the sort of thing that the really old school guys complain about moves like that exposing the business, because it's obvious that the only reason Chris Jericho jumped off the top rope was so that Randy Orton could RKO him. Like, if you imagine that they're in a real fight and that Chris Jericho is intending to do something to harm Randy Orton, it makes no sense, because what the fuck was he trying to do? Just like when a guy it's not as common of a spot nowadays, but they used to do it all the time, where a guy would be on the mat and the other guy would get up on the top rope and he would be jumping off, and then the guy on the mat would lift his leg and kind of put his foot up and boot the guy in the face as he fell. And the only way that spot worked is if the guy who was falling landed on his feet, but then you have to jump, so it doesn't look like you're even going to do anything to him. Like, you're not dropping an elbow, you're not doing like a splash or a leg drop or anything. You're just kind of just jumping off, like you're just going to land on your feet right next to him, And it doesn't look right. It doesn't really make sense. But it's just one of those. It's just one of those things. Like, it's
the best thing are the knees. I think the bringing the knees up are the best things that you can do up top ropes, because that looks so smooth a lot of times, because you have the flexibility of bringing your knees down, so it gives a little on the impact. But man, that looks great, especially during those tag team matches where they were bringing up the knees, when Goldust is bringing up knees on the Usos. So they look really good.
Yeah. It's always appreciated when they come up with something where you accomplish the same thing, but you put a little bit of extra thought into it, so it does look good. So it doesn't take you out of the match and remind you, oh, they're not really fighting. Well, next on the Night of Champions was the Divas title match, the triple threat match. Paige defending the title against AJ Lee and Nikki Bella. We both got this one wrong, and we both had different picks. I said Paige was going to keep the title. I was wrong. You said Nikki was going to win the title. You were wrong because AJ won the title. So we
Yeah.
both had a different pick, and we both got it wrong.
Yeah, she did that quite cleverly too. So
Yeah.
winning that belt from her. So I guess what it was, Nikki Bella ran into the corner, and then she put her whatever it is that she calls. I don't ever remember their moves because they're trademarks. So I'm against learning the trademark moves. So she put her finisher on her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a torture rack thing, isn't it? She gets her up in the torture rack and then does like a sit out.
Mm-hmm. I do like the way she applies that sometimes because you can twirl her around your body a little bit and all of a sudden she's latched onto you. So, I mean, it looks pretty smooth. So yeah, I enjoyed that match. I think Nikki to the best of her ability did fine. She kept interest in the match, and it's your typical three-way where one person gets dumped to ringside to showcase two people. So I thought it went well. It was what it was supposed to be. And but yeah, what a surprise! AJ Lee captures it back again for the third time.
Yeah, yeah. I almost wish, since it keeps going back and forth between Paige and AJ, I almost wish that they would have just picked somebody and just let her hold on to it this whole time. Because I mean, switching the belt back and forth doesn't really add to the prestige of it. And the Divas title doesn't mean shit anyway. The only reason the Divas title is as prestigious as it is because AJ held it for like a year before she lost it. After WrestleMania, having them sort of keep tossing it back and forth doesn't really help a whole lot.
But I would say here's a clue to all you divas out there. The only way you're ever going to get a hold of that Divas title is if you don't do Total Divas, because you're looking at the two people they keep passing it back and forth to, and they're not on that damn show.
That's true. That's true. You know what? At least, hey, thank heaven for small favors. At least they haven't thrown the Divas title in with all the Total Divas stuff, because the Total Divas stuff is just, I mean, they did it again on Raw this week, which we'll talk about, like where they have matches based on shit that happened on Total Divas. It just makes no sense at all. And then finally on Night of Champions is the main event, the WWE title match, Brock Lesnar defending against John Cena. Technically, we both got this one wrong because we both picked Brock to win, and Cena won by disqualification. But the practical result was the same, which is even though Cena won the match, titles don't change hands on DQs, so Brock is still the champion. So the final tally of our predictions is I got 2 right, you got 3 right, so Doc wins the prediction pool this month. Yay! And what did you think of the Brock versus Cena match, Doc?
Not much different than what I expected. It was a total beatdown by Brock. He added a few little different moves in there than I saw last time. Showed that he could throw John Cena around a different way, which was cool. Yeah. And John Cena had a little bit more offense than the first time. They wanted to make sure he looked a little bit stronger, but I still think Brock Lesnar dominated. When Brock was on top, he looked like he was just controlling, just really dominating and imposing his will on John Cena. And John Cena, when he was on offense, was really just kind of like a burst of energy that come striking out at you, and he did a few moves and shoulder tackles here and here to fluster Brock, but it didn't do much. I really think in the long run Brock would have won that match. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, I actually thought in terms of the way the match was laid out, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was afraid that they would give Cena even more offense than he got. I like the fact that, Cena got a lot more than he did at SummerSlam, but it was still mostly Brock's match. It was still mostly Brock throwing him around. It's just that when Cena got up and got his offense in, he got a lot more in, and it seemed like he got he got a lot closer to Brock than he did last month. But it was still Brock still came away looking like the really dominant one. And Brock kept the title. I at first I was a little irritated that they went with the DQ finish, that they had Rollins run in, and then they even not only that, but they teased him cashing in the Money in the Bank, and then had Cena break it up. That kind of got on my nerves at first, but then I thought about it and I thought, you know what, it was a decent match, and Brock still has the belt, so what the fuck am I going to complain about?
That little son of a bitch came in and curb stomped Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar took that well when he could have just got up and snapped Seth Rollins right in fucking half. I was like, I don't think so.
Exactly. Brock don't take Seth Rollins' finish. He could have done that, but yeah, overall, I thought Night of Champions was a pretty decent show. I thought it had one really, really good match with Sheamus and Cesaro, and I really loved the return of Dean Ambrose. I liked the tag match. I didn't say a whole lot about it, but you said you really liked it, and I agree. I thought it was almost too good of a match to start the show with. I thought like the tag match was so good, and it was the first match. I was almost like, man, this match is like way too long and way too good for the first match of this show.
Yeah, I'd have probably thrown the IC title out there first to open up the show because Dolph Ziggler could really get the crowd going.
Yeah, but then they made up for it because the next match was Sheamus and Cesaro, which was even better. So it wound up not being that big of a deal. But yeah, the tag title match was really strong too, and I thought it was a pretty good show. I thought it was a pretty good show. So let's move on, unless you had something else to say about Night of Champions.
No. I think if you want to watch Night of the Champions and get your own opinion, you can check it out on the WWE Network for just $9.99.
$9.99. And apparently they're officially giving you shit if you buy it on pay-per-view. Like they did.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, if you just bought this on pay-per-view, you just paid $54.95.
Ha ha! You idiot.
Yeah, and it just makes me think that there's people that are actually nice enough to still be carrying because Dish Network is out and DirecTV's out, and I don't know how many other people are out of actually giving them pay-per-view times. So here they are trash talking. It's about as dumb as when Brock Lesnar went to UFC and trash talk their sponsors after he won the World Championship. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, that is still a lifeline. You just want to cut that off?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, don't piss off the people that are still giving us money. What is your problem? Yeah, I thought I caught that. I thought that was interesting that they were like trolling the guys that bought it on pay-per-view. Like, you could have only spent $9.99, stupid. What the fuck were you thinking? Well, let's move on to this week's episode of Raw, the night following Night of Champions. Raw was live in Memphis, Tennessee. Jerry Lawler. I'm not from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm from Hollywood. I have the intelligence. Anyway. That's what I always think. I can't help it. When I think of Memphis, obviously Jerry Lawler, if you're a wrestling fan, but when I think of Jerry Lawler, I automatically think of Lawler versus Andy Kaufman, which we talked about a long time ago on this show, and we both think is fucking awesome.
And I had a moment because I was actually looking up the results real quick, and I wasn't paying attention to you, and you came out of nowhere with that. and oh man, that shit was good, man.
I'm not from Memphis, Tennessee. So, Raw was from Memphis, and they kicked things off just right with Dean motherfucking Ambrose. Came out, his music hit, he walks to the ring, he's all business, he gets on the microphone, he says he's not dead, he calls himself WWE's ugly stepchild. He says he actually appreciates the creativity shown by Seth Rollins and Kane to stomp his head through a pile of cinder blocks. But now he's back, and he says he's holding a grudge, and he's tired of the Authority protecting Seth Rollins, and he gets a steel chair and opens it up, and he's going to have a sit-in in the middle of the ring. And he says he's not leaving until Seth Rollins comes out because he never gets tired of punching Seth Rollins in the face. I thought that was awesome. But instead of Seth Rollins coming out or Triple H or any of the other heels, John Cena comes out because he has a problem with Seth Rollins too, because of course Seth Rollins cost him his match with Brock at Night of Champions the night before. And what I loved about this is that Ambrose does not take a single step back from John Cena. He acts like he doesn't show any respect for Cena. He doesn't act like he's afraid of him. He doesn't say, John, I respect you. Everybody knows you're the greatest. But he doesn't do any of that fucking horse shit. He just says, John, you really don't want to be out here right now. You don't want to get in my way for this. And he doesn't act like he gives a shit about Cena at all. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, he didn't beat around the bush. He identified exactly what Cena was doing there and addressed him straight away. He's like, nah, I know what you're doing. Don't even step on my fucking dick here, bro. Just get out of my way.
I thought it was great because one of the things that really irritates me about the way the shows lately is that the guys, all of the wrestlers, whether it's baby faces or heels or whatever, they're all way too respectful of each other. You know, like I mean, as much as I like John Cena, I love sportsmanship, and I love when the guys like shake hands after a tough match, and I liked all the times that John Cena would like put Daniel Bryan over, but after a while it got a little condescending. It was like, guys, you guys are fighting, you guys are competitors. Like I love that Dean Ambrose did not, you know, pay respect to John Cena when Cena came out. He said, "What are you doing out here? Get out of my face." You know, I thought that was awesome. I wish they would do that sort of thing more often. But before they can fight, because it looks like they're about to fight, Cena takes his shirt off and Dean takes his jacket off, and it looks like they're like ready to hook it up. The Authority comes out, the whole Authority, like Triple H and Stephanie and Kane and Orton and Rollins, they all come out, and Triple H is about to, he sounds like he's about to book a match when Cena says, "You know what, fuck this," and he and Ambrose just run out of the ring and run up the ramp and just fucking jump everybody before they even start. I thought that was fucking awesome. I thought they totally faked me out. I thought that it was going to be Triple H cutting like some fucking 10-minute promo just to set up two matches, and they didn't do that. They went in the exact opposite direction with Cena and Ambrose just, you know, jumping out of the ring and running after him. And they did end up booking two matches for later in the show. Triple H ended up booking Kane versus Ambrose and Orton versus Cena, but they didn't do it until after they came back from the commercial, when Cena and Dean were chasing after Rollins backstage. I thought it was a really good way to start the show. What do you think?
Well, I'd like to thank that piece of luggage that Dean Ambrose landed on when he fell out of the back of that jacked car, and they identified on Raw that he indeed jacked a car.
Yes.
Criminals said, I mean, and people are getting fired from the NFL for what? Just hitting a woman? This guy yanked a person out of his car and stole it and ran away with it. I mean,
he's a car thief.
He will. And I guarantee he'll either be on Main Event or SmackDown this Friday. So, police, you know where to find him. He broke the law.
Yeah, whoever's car that was, that poor bastard who got shoved aside.
But I have fallen out of the back of a moving vehicle before, and it does not feel good. So I thought it was lucky that Dean had that little piece of luggage that was underneath him when he came out of there.
Yeah, that you're right. That could have been quite nasty. But yeah, and I love, again, it goes to Dean's like just fucking lunatic character, that he like jumps through the back of the car. You know, he's not just content to just beat on the side of it or, you know, thump his fist into the window or something. Like he tries his best to crawl through the back of the car to get in there to get his hands on him, and he can't quite make it. I thought it was great. The first match of the show was a rematch from Night of Champions. It was for the Intercontinental title. The new champion, The Miz, accompanied by Damien Mizdow, who had his own toy Intercontinental title belt.
I think I still have one of those somewhere.
Yeah. I you know, when they, before I got a better look at it, when he first walked out, I thought they both had like the same belt. It took me a second to register that Damien's was one of the toys, but for a second I thought they both walked out like with identical championship belts, and I was like, wow, that's a little. They're taking the stunt double thing a little too far, but no, Damien just had the replica version. I thought that was funny. I'm not crazy about the Damien Mizdow thing, but I thought having him come out with like his own fake title was funny. And I noticed also, conspicuous by his absence, no R-Truth portraying the stunt double of Dolph Ziggler, which I thought was good because I didn't like that. But these two have a match, rematch for the Intercontinental title. I thought it was a pretty good match, actually. I thought it was at least as good as their match on the pay-per-view. And Dolph won the title back. There was some confusion between Damien and Miz. Damien got up on the apron and Dolph super kicked him off, and then Miz went to roll him up, and Dolph reversed the roll up and grabbed the tights, and a little bit of payback for Miz grabbing the tights on him and got the 3 count and won back the title. So I'm not a huge fan of the one-day title switches, but I thought it was a good match, and I think the right guys got the title. So what do you think?
Well, according to facts, which I read them earlier, I was looking for them, this is the second time Miz has done this, where he has won the Intercontinental Championship and lost it back to the guy he took it from the very next night. I think the first time was at might have been at WrestleMania 29. He wrestled Bad News Barrett for the Intercontinental title there, and then lost it back to him on Raw. And of course, he did it with Dolph Ziggler this past weekend. So that would make him the only man to have won that belt and then lost it straight back to the former champion the next day.
Well, good for Miz.
Mm-hmm.
he's thought of highly enough to win the title, but he has to give it back the next day. So, I thought it was a good match. I don't know what they're going to do with Miz after this. I mean, I do like his cocky movie star gimmick. I think that's a good fit for him. And I definitely think that Dolph keeping the title for a little while is a good idea. I'm just not. I don't know about the one night title switch sort of thing.
The off night.
Yeah, and then they have a rematch the next night and he wins it right back. I don't know. Next was, speaking of rematches, this was a rematch actually not just from last week on Raw, but also from SmackDown. This was Bo Dallas versus Jack Swagger. I assume this was supposed to be the rubber match in their feud because Swagger beat Bo Dallas on Raw last time, and then on SmackDown last week they had a rematch, and Bo won that match. So this would be the third match in their series. Bo Dallas versus Jack Swagger. Bo looked aggressive in the match. I thought that was good. I like when Bo really, goes after the guy and shows a little aggression. Crowd gets behind Jack with the USA chant, which is a little weird because Bo is also an American. I mean, and eventually Swagger comes back and he gets the win with the Patriot Lock. So Swagger wins the blow-off match. I guess that's going to be the blow-off match. It didn't seem like they were building to anything else because after the match, Zeb got on the microphone and sort of threw Bo's catchphrase back in his face. It said basically, "Don't worry, Bo, I still believe." So
I still think he's going to nitpick away at Jack and make him a believer. This isn't over by a long shot. But I mean, I wouldn't understand why it would be over. I think there's more to this because I mean, that's not really even giving Bo an opportunity to elevate himself. If like the first kind of feud that he gets into, it's on the losing end.
Oh, I agree. It's not how I would book Bo, but I mean, who knows if that's how WWE is going to book Bo? It's tough though because I think in a way the fact that Swagger has gotten so over with this babyface turn is complicating things because he's actually caught on enough that it doesn't really make sense to beat him. You feel like if you keep him strong, you might actually be able to use him for something at some point instead of just making the heels on the mid-card look good. And I feel like when they first turned him babyface against Rusev, that's kind of all they were looking for, is just a guy to put him with Rusev and be like, okay, and Rusev is going to, squash him in a month, and that's going to be it. But I think people actually started really getting behind Swagger as a good guy. Mm-hmm. And now it's sort of like, well, shit, what do we do with him now?
Hey, you need a new Patriot out there. I mean, that's I was talking to Dane about this. That's a gimmick that will forever work because you have that deep run of patriotism in almost everybody here. One way or the other, you're proud of this country, and it's an easy one to get behind. So I mean, all the way down from Hulk Hogan to Sergeant Slaughter to Kurt Angle. I mean, all great people who have backed the American flag and have used it to get the crowd to pop. It's an easy one to get them to go USA, USA. And I work with the Patriot a lot, man, and with indie shows, and he gets a rousing. I mean, of course, we're up in the mountains of West Virginia wrestling, so of course you're going to find true-blooded Americans up there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you know what I love about it is, I mean, the way they overbook things and overwrite so many of their stories in WWE today, it really makes me appreciate the simplicity of a patriotic gimmick. I mean, in a way it's cheap, in a way it's like easy heat, but at the same time it's not complicated, it's simple, it's easy to understand. It's the sort of stuff that I think wrestling should be most of the time. You know, you cheer for Jack Swagger because he's one of you. He's fighting for your side. He's the good guy. And the guy he's fighting against is the bad guy. And that's, I mean, that sounds like almost too simple, but that's the problem with a lot of the writing nowadays is it usually should be simple. And they make it too complicated. And with Swagger playing, you know, the all-American babyface, you know it's not going to be complicated. It's going to be simple. It's going to be easy to understand. It's going to be, you know, Jack Swagger cares about the United States. He's he's a not an Olympian, but he was an NCAA wrestler. He's an All-American. He's a terrific technical wrestler. He represents the United States, and his feuds are either against foreigners or against people like Bo, who are throwing his representation of the United States in his face and trying to use it to get under his skin. It's easy, you know, and I appreciate that. Like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I might have been a little more snotty about it and been like, oh, it's so easy, fucking the all-American gimmick, whatever. But now I really appreciate it.
Yeah, when Sergeant Slaughter turned his back on us, I didn't bat an eye at that. I really didn't. It didn't affect me one way, and I didn't feel insulted by it. Of course, by then I was already had my foot in the door with wrestling, so it was like I knew what was going on, but still, it's like, nah, it didn't bother me one bit. My patriotism wasn't scarred at all, one iota. So, but it was really cool. I mean, I've hung around with Iron Sheik at that point. And I mean, it's like you hate this country, but you've lived here forever, dude.
Yeah, really. Did you see Iron Sheik? I just happened to be on Twitter after the show, and I saw Iron Sheik tweet his thoughts about Night of Champions, and it was so funny. It was something like, you know, Cena wins by DQ, but my beer is still cold, Bubba. It was like, what the fuck? I don't know. Fucking Iron Sheik. Yeah, I'm sure he was drunk the whole time he was watching the show. Next on Raw is, speaking of the Total Divas stuff, this was Summer Rae versus Natalya, and this is sort of like, you know, half of what we've been talking about and half of what we've been saying we wish they wouldn't do anymore. Like, here's Summer, who is a relative new face in the Divas division and has a really huge upside, I think, and she's with Natalya, who is someone we've both talked about they should use a lot more of because she can work, and she's pretty much good at everything. And could really add some legitimacy to the Divas division. So they're having a match, but it's a match set up by an angle they did on fucking Total Divas, which, as we all know, is a reality show that is taped several months ago. So they're having this match live on TV in September over something that in their real lives happened probably back over the summer. So makes no sense at all.
I love the fact that Natty got a win on Raw. I mean, it's a rarity, so anytime she does, I'm happy about that. She looks so cute. I love her new outfit. But I agree with you that it is so stupid that they did the storylines between Total Divas and Raw blend. And I implore the fans, you go to these live shows, and if you know what you're seeing is really just a result of what you saw on Total Divas, and I'm sorry because I love you, Natty, boo the hell out of that stuff. I mean, I want to hear those chants of what kind of bullshit you're watching. It's like you want wrestling, not fucking reality, you know, old treaded reality.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wrote in my notes here, I wrote that I thought both Natty and Summer deserve better than this. Because I'm totally behind you with Natalya. I think she's been one of the stars of the division ever since she came in. I think she's just one of their most solid workers, period, and has never really been used to her potential. And Summer Rae, she's not a great worker, but she has like the heel personality, the heel attitude down to like a T. I mean, she can get such heat on herself by just acting like a total stuck-up asshole in that ring. When she had Natty on the mat in this match, and it wasn't a very long match. The match really wasn't long enough to be that bad. And like you say, Natty won with a clean victory. She got the submission, and I thought that was great. But when Summer had that brief moment when she was sort of in control, and she's really tall and thin, and she's standing over Natalya on the ground. It looks like she's just towering over her, and she's just rubbing it in her face and cocking her hips and talking shit to her. And I mean, when Summer Rae does that, I think that is awesome. She is one of the most awesome female heels they've had in a long time, because she has that personality where you just fucking hate her. She is just so condescending, you know, and so full of herself, and it's just awesome. And they could be doing so much with her, other than, well, she's just one of the girls on Total Divas, you know. It's really too bad.
She reminds me a lot of Michelle McCool, and I do miss McCool.
Yeah, and that's weird because she was with Layla too this week. She was Summer's corner man, I guess, was Layla for this match. So another reminder of Michelle McCool. Next match on Raw was Kane versus Dean Ambrose, one of the main matches they booked in the aftermath of that opening segment. And just like Dean didn't take a step back when Cena got in his face, I like the fact that Dean took it right to Kane. He didn't act like he was afraid of Kane at all, even though Kane is a much bigger guy. He fucking went after Kane tooth and nail, one after the other. And it was a pretty hard-fought match. And I love the fact that whenever, and this is always a good sign to me, because I always listen to see how the crowd is reacting. And whenever they did sort of the heat spots where Kane had Dean down, like in a submission hold or an arm bar, you heard the claps, you heard the fans chanting, "Let's go Ambrose." That's like such an encouraging sign, you know, because that's what they're supposed to do. When the good guy is down and the heel is like putting him to sleep or putting him in a submission hold or grinding him down, that's what you want. You want the people to start clapping or to start chanting his name to get, you know, to get hot for his comeback, and that's exactly what happened during this match.
And not to mention that he had plenty of help because the chips were not in his favor during this match.
No.
So much weighing against him that could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. He actually hit his finish on Kane, but then Rollins ran in for the disqualification. And Rollins went to get a chair, but Ambrose came back and knocked him out of the ring, but then Kane grabbed Ambrose and choke slammed him, and Seth acted like he was going to get back in the ring and go after Dean some more, but Dean sat up and grabbed the chair and sort of was like, "Come on, you want some? Come get some." And Rollins wound up walking away. So Rollins must have either ditched the stolen car or returned it to the guy. I don't know. He came back somehow.
Sorry, I thought it was mine.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was my car. I'm sorry. Hey, no harm, right? Oh, I'll pay for your fucked up suitcase too, that Dean Ambrose fell out of the back of your car onto. I like that they're teasing the fact that Kane and Orton are kind of getting tired of Rollins. You know, that it seems like Rollins always starts shit with people, and then Triple H books Kane and Orton to go take care of it. I like the fact that they're showing like they're a little irritated with that.
I agree. I think that I noticed the storyline's playing out that way, and that where they're getting tired of Seth being the shit stirrer of the group, and that could possibly lead to a tag team between these two, and I think that could be helpful to both of their careers right now, because it's kind of fizzled out. Both of them are a little fizzled right now. I mean, we think John Cena, and Randy Orton are the two people that have been on top of Randy. Of course, his career has not fared quite as well as John Cena has in the last couple of years, because at least John Cena has still stayed up on top, where Randy just, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know if writers just don't have really anything written for him. I do love the way Randy is like checking with the fans these days, like tapping his ear. It's like, "What'd you say? I can't hear you. You booing me? Fuck you. Are you booing me? Huh? Are you booing me?
Yeah, and you know, that's something that I like to see that too, because years and years ago, I would see internet wrestling fans sort of get on Orton for not doing those sorts of things, whether he was a heel or a babyface. Like they thought they would say things about Randy Orton like, "Well, he doesn't do enough. You know, when he's wrestling, he's too focused on the other person, and he doesn't do enough to bring the crowd into it." And it seems like he's sort of adjusted to that I don't know. It probably has nothing to do with fans saying that, but maybe someone else, someone in the company has sort of coached him on that and said, it doesn't hurt to do a little taunt or do a little gesture or look to the crowd just to sort of get a rise out of him to get him into the match. And yeah, he's doing a lot of this, which is great. And he's shown he's really cool about when they cheer for someone else. Like when they were in Vegas a couple weeks ago and they were cheering for Ryback, and Orton was in the ring and they were like, "We want Ryback." Like Orton was really cool about that. He did his stuff and then he kind of turned to Ryback and he did this and he went to the crowd and he was like, "You want him?" And he tagged him. Like he's a lot more laid back about that sort of stuff than it seemed like he was years and years ago, which is nice. It shows maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a tough nut to crack there. I didn't think he was going to make it because he was already on his 2 strikes. It's like third strike, and Randy Orton's going to be standing in TNA next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Or no, in 90 days. I'm sorry.
yeah, exactly. So next on the show was a 6-man tag. It's actually the same 6-man tag they had last week. Sheamus and the Usos versus Goldust and Stardust and Cesaro. It was a good match last week, so I guess why the hell not do it again? And it was a good match this week too. It wasn't quite as hot, I didn't think, as last week. But you mentioned earlier Sheamus really showing us something. I think Sheamus, since he's been working with Cesaro these last couple weeks, I think this is some of the best work in the ring that Sheamus has ever done. I mean, he is really stepping up his game with Cesaro here.
Yeah, it is nice to see sometimes when someone will gain that kind of knowledge and more, at least, get a little braver in the ring, bring a little bit more to the table, take more chances, risk more to show what they can do. There's things like when you're at the top of WWE, there's probably moves you've done all your career, and then you hit the developmental stage and they see you do your shit and like that's beautiful. Let's cut that down to 5 safer things you could do similar to that. We don't want to see that shit anymore. which is why I think Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania landed on his head during that moonsault that he did. Not moonsault, the shooting star.
Yeah, the shooting star. Yeah, that almost killed him. And that's one of the things that made that Sheamus versus Cesaro match at Night of Champions so cool is that, especially toward the end in those last couple of minutes, they were busting out moves that you haven't seen either of those guys do maybe ever. I mean, they were really bringing out the move set, and it was just
the whole Sheamus fucking. The whole Sheamus when Cesaro was over there punching him in the face and slapping him, and Sheamus to get all reared up, and he's like, "Come on!"
Yes.
And then he would fucking take a boot right to the mush. I'm like, "Oh my god, that was great!"
Yeah, it was really awesome. And there was one spot and of course it was with Sheamus and Cesaro in this 6-man tag match. Did you see that fucking spot where Cesaro was on the floor and Sheamus was going to do the slingshot like tackle over the top rope from the apron, and Cesaro grabbed his feet and fucking swung him all the way down to the floor, and it looked like he hit like face first on the floor.
No.
My God, it was
I'll have to rewatch that. Some of the stuff I missed because I'm always doing things and turning.
It was crazy, and there was a spot like that, a similar spot that made me go, "Oh my God!" during the Miz Ziggler match when Miz hit him with that reverse neck breaker like off the ring apron and dragged him out of the ring to the floor.
Those hard bumps always look nice. It was one of the best I think right now at the hard bump. It's like making it look like it's an uncontrolled bump. Is Titus O'Neil, because he throws people around like dolls. I mean, he'll just do what he does and just chuck them to the side, and I love that he does that.
Yeah, because he can get away with that. He can make that look good because he's so fucking huge. I mean, Sheamus and the Usos won this 6-man tag match that we've been talking about. Jey Uso, I think it was Jey Uso, hit the Superfly Splash on Goldust to get the pin. So maybe they're not quite done with the Usos versus Goldust Stardust program. Maybe they figure they've got one more in there because an Uso pinned Goldust, which would suggest that they're going to continue that for a little bit.
Yeah, they keep bringing up that they've been knocking him, calling him old dust, and
Yeah.
you know, and, I mean, that might be something that comes up here very soon into the storyline that they've been picking on him, that he's old, you know, that Cody Rhodes really is just revitalizing his career, but, you know, take him away and Goldust won't be anything, which, you know, could be proven. You know, Goldust, sometimes his morale and demeanor gets upset because, you know, he's got sensitive feelings.
Yeah, he is very sensitive. He's very sensitive. Um, he gets that from Dusty, I think. You know, Dusty had a little bit of a sensitive side too. Um, Next, Mark Henry came out and cut a promo to say he was sorry for losing to Rusev at Night of Champions and letting his country down. And he even says that it's okay if the fans chant "what" at him, which I thought was a nice little touch in his promo. He said, "It's all right. You all can pick on me tonight. I deserve it. You can say what or whatever else you want," which they did. They started saying "what." But anyway, before they got too far into that, Rusev and Lana came out to gloat, and Henry said, "You know what? Instead of gloating, if the people will let me, I would love to take another shot at destroying Rusev tonight." Lana says Rusev crushed, so they have another rematch from Night of Champions. Mark Henry versus Rusev. And this one goes pretty much the same way as it went last night. The crowd chanted USA and tried to get behind Henry, but Rusev pretty much just locked him into a rest hold and wore him down. And Mark tried to start his comeback, but he had bad ribs, and Rusev ended up clamping into the accolade, the camel clutch, and Mark passed out, so Rusev wins by submission.
Yeah, I like the way he goaded him. He was trying to get him back up. He's like, come on, America, get back up. You know, come on, I got more for you. Just stand up. And finally he's like, to hell with it, and it puts him in the move. I did look for Big Show to come down.
Me too. I was surprised that you didn't see anything of Big Show.
Yeah, I thought he'd hold him in his finisher too long, or, and then Big Show's music would hit and he'd come running down, and that would kickstart his. Because I don't know where Rusev's going to go from here. I mean, he's dominated Mark Henry, and that's over. There's no point in Mark Henry losing to him a third time.
Yeah, and Big Show would seem like the obvious direction to go now if they want to put someone else with Rusev, because Big Show and Henry, they haven't been tag team partners for very long, but they're tag team partners.
And it showed them at Night of the Champions that if you were watching it showed them two talking, and they reflect on how good of friends they were. So it's like when they touched on that, I thought, okay, Big Show's going to be up next, and he's going to come out here and save Mark Henry, and that will kickstart that feud. But,
right. Yeah. Well, maybe they'll do that next week.
There's always SmackDown.
Yeah, exactly. And then since nobody watches SmackDown, they'll do it on SmackDown, and then they'll do it again on Raw. And speaking of Titus O'Neil, who you brought up earlier, the next match was Slater Gator, Heath Slater and Titus O'Neil versus the tag team of Adam Rose and the guy in the bunny costume. And this was a pretty short match, not a bad match, even though with the silliness of the bunny. The bunny got in his cool-looking moves. He dropped Heath Slater with a kick, and then he jumped off the apron onto Titus on the outside. Adam Rose hit his finisher on Heath Slater and got the pin. So the bunny saw some actual official in-ring action. A guy in an Easter bunny costume got to work a match on Monday Night Raw. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not on board. I'm not really on board with the Adam Rose thing, anyways. And just to have someone that really, I think Doink was better. I mean, not wrestling wise. Although I wouldn't put that past Matt Bourne, that he wasn't a great wrestler. But speculation of who this bunny is, if that is true, and I know at least on 2 occasions it has been true for two NXT wrestlers. Don't want to, spit in their way, because they're fucking awesome wrestlers. Can't wait to see them come up. But the bunny suit is really just absolutely ridiculous. I just do not support this whatsoever. And to make jokes out of someone like Titus O'Neil and Heath Slater. Okay, Titus O'Neil. To make a joke out of someone like Titus O'Neil, it's just wrong with this kind of gimmick. Especially, look how white that bunny is compared to Titus O'Neil. It's like that's Ahmed Johnson black. But man, what a beast that guy is. I do love Titus. I wish they would do something with him. He's got the ability to entertain.
Yeah.
He's got that body to have the good look. I mean, he can get the crowd going. Just had to learn how to do something more than.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's not at this point yet, but I think I mentioned in one of our past shows, if I were in charge of something creative at WWE, I would be trying to get Titus ready for Brock. I think that would be an awesome match. I mean,
Mhm.
it might not be an awesome match in terms of match quality, but in terms of heat, in terms of look, and I mean, just the sight of those two guys facing off in the ring. I mean, you know,
But make him a Paul Heyman guy, and then down the road, once he's got a little bit of more credibility under his belt and a little bit of um, a leadership by Paul Heyman, at least to learn this business a little bit better. Then you get the split where he turns on him and goes against Brock Lesnar. So
yeah,
that would be the great setup for that.
there you go. There you go. And yeah, I'm like you, man. I don't get it. I mean, I don't mind. I love Heath Slater. I don't mind like comedy angles. I don't mind comedy tag teams. But when you got a guy like Titus O'Neil who is that size and has a good look and is uh, good in the ring and is great on the microphone, has such personality, like that's all you can find for that guy to do is to throw him into a tag team with Heath Slater and they wrestle Adam Rose and the guy in the bunny suit. Like that's what you've got for fucking Titus O'Neil. I just it just makes me shake my head. I'm like, okay, at least he's on TV. At least you're doing something with him. You're keeping him out there so people don't forget who he is. But Jesus Christ, man, have you seen this guy?
hmm If you lined all those wrestlers up and say you get to have one teammate, who do you want? I take Titus O'Neil. I wouldn't care what his wrestling ability was because he's just going to do what he wants to do to you, and it's not going to feel very good either.
Well, and the other thing is, I saw Titus on, I think it was last week on NXT,
hmm
and he was just by himself, and he wasn't doing the comedy thing. Heath wasn't with him. He just basically came down to be, the main roster guy who they loaned to NXT that week, which they do sometimes.
He was
And
bitching about them. He was bitching about the NXT guys coming on Raw and
yeah,
wasting their time, so he went over there to waste some of their time.
yeah, and man, he looked like a star. He got the mic and got in the ring, and he acted like he was the star of the show. And it's like, who are you guys? Is anybody watching this fucking show? This guy could be a star, not just a dude in a tag team. And
Yeah,
he's been with the company now for like 4 or 5 years, they've never really done anything with him, and it's getting a little ridiculous.
yeah, I would just send him to NXT, make him a star there. Just
Yeah,
obviously you can't do anything with Raw, send him down there. He would definitely be a star.
I send him down to NXT, have him squash Neville for the NXT title, have him keep it for 8 months, and then have somebody beat him for it, and send him back up to Raw, and have him do the same thing.
I want to see him pick Neville up by his ears.
And just throw him over the top rope without even looking. Just get out of here. Yeah, I don't get the Titus O'Neil thing. It's just how you cannot see that guy and have dollar signs just in your eyes is beyond me. I mean, he would be one of my top future stars if I was in charge of creative for that company. I just don't get it. Um, Next on Raw was another really terrible Divas segment. Unfortunately, Nikki Bella came out to cut a promo for some reason. I have no idea what they think they're accomplishing by letting Nikki Bella talk. She says something that I don't really pay any attention to, and then she calls out Brie Bella, and Brie and Nikki have another argument about something or other. They're sisters, and they don't like each other, and Nikki's jealous of Brie, and Brie's jealous of Nikki, and blah 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 blah. And they end up fighting, and Brie tries to put Nikki in the yes lock, but she gets away, and she runs away even though her match is next, and she has to come back for the match. And AJ comes out to end the segment because I guess there's no other way out of the segment. They just like, fuck it, bring AJ down. So AJ comes down, and it leads into AJ's match with Nikki, which is next on the show. And also, Paige is there too. After they come back from commercial break, Paige is there to sit in on commentary. She announces while she's on commentary that she and AJ are no longer frenemies, And then the commentators spend most of the match discussing why Paige and AJ, what happened to end their imaginary relationship that they never actually had in the first place because they were both just being sarcastic about being best friends. And then they also gush about how they were able to get hashtag Bunny Mania trending on Twitter. So that's the commentary for this match. Anyway, the match isn't that great. AJ wins by submission with her Black Widow finisher. And there you go. What did you think, Doug?
Well, I mean, obviously Nikki Bella wants to be known these days as the Nikki Bella, and she wants Brie to abandon the Bella name. So I see a match in that future coming, where they'll wrestle for the name of Bella. I think Nikki is probably going to be one that will stick around. Brie, I don't know. I don't know if she's cut out to really do anything important in wrestling except for being Nikki's sister. Nikki, I think, has the potential here, to go a lot further than Brie does, and that's been shown with a couple of her matches. Obviously, she is doing a little bit more than she used to, just as an ass wiggler. So, but don't get me wrong, really. I'm still enjoying that ass wiggling. But I do wonder to myself what John thinks of all this.
Oh, you mean John Cena? Her boyfriend?
Yeah, what's it do? Yeah. I mean, if you wanna really take into effect of Total Divas here, she's on Total Divas, and why don't we go back into Total Divas where John Cena, when they show that lovely relationship where John just stops the car, or rips the car over his side, and goes like, "Hey, do you know what I stand for? What the hell is this shit you're doing?"
Yeah, right. Hey, speaking of Total Divas, I didn't mention this during the Natalya versus Summer match, but there was a moment I noticed in the commentary when Michael Cole was talking about the argument on the episode of Total Divas that Summer and Natalya had, and one of the things that Summer said during the argument she asked Natalya if this is the way she talks to her husband. And her husband, of course, is Tyson Kidd, but on Total Divas, they refer to Tyson Kidd by his real name, which is TJ. And Michael Cole referred to Natalya's husband, TJ, on Raw, which I thought was really strange, because on Raw and on NXT and everywhere that Tyson Kidd has ever wrestled for WWE, he's been Tyson Kidd. Mm-hmm. They've never called him TJ. And then all of a sudden, and it's very well known that he and Natalya are husband and wife. And then all of a sudden, Michael Cole's like, Natalya's husband, TJ. And if you didn't watch Total Divas, like I think most wrestling fans, you might not know that, TJ is Tyson Kidd's real name. And it just seemed really confusing to me. Like, why wouldn't Michael Cole just say Natalya's husband, Tyson Kidd?
Yeah, because if you flip over to NXT and you catch an interview with Tyson Kidd, he might just mention the fact that his wife, Natalya, which is like, might confuse a fan that you're just like, wait a second, did some shit go down on Total Divas I wasn't aware of? Because I thought she was married to Tyson. Who's this TJ asshole?
Exactly. I mean, if you know that Tyson Kidd's real name is TJ, then it's no big deal, but not everybody knows that. And not everybody who watches Raw watches Total Divas or gives a shit about it. So for the lead commentator to refer to Tyson Kidd as his Total Divas name instead of his Raw name, it's just I didn't really, I thought that was a little awkward.
Yeah, I think it's awkward anyways that they do different names for Cameron and all that when they're on the show.
I agree.
I don't know if Total Divas is supposed to be a separate entity. I mean, it's obviously on your WWE network. It's part of what you do, you produce, but it's like. If you're hoping that people are fans, most time I would imagine the only fans you got for Total Divas are people that were already wrestling fans and they tuned into Total Divas. But if you actually got a normal person and they became a fan of Total Divas, are you wanting them to become a future fan of your wrestling product? Because if that's the case, then you really should be calling this person, who on Total Divas, we'll talk about what they do, their characters on shows and everything, but then they see them on these shows. It's another one of those little every now and again where they're letting you peek inside the curtain and see the behind the scenes, which it's a little with that show too, because you got a huge lines of bullshit that is just thrown on raising the curtain.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it even worse because even when WWE does their their documentaries, their behind the scenes things, they almost always will use a guy's working name. They almost never call guys by their real names unless their real name is also the name that they work under as a wrestler. Like Chris Jericho is Chris Jericho, not Chris Irvine. Triple H is Triple H, not Paul Levesque, that sort of thing. But on Total Divas, they use people's real names, except for a few people. Like some people, they use their wrestler names, but some people, they use their real names. So like Daniel Bryan is Bryan Danielson, but on the Total Divas. But I think like when Brodus Clay was on Total Divas, they called him Brodus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like some people they use their work name, and some people they use their real name, and it doesn't really seem like there's any rhyme or reason to it. I don't know. Like I guess if CM Punk was on it, they'd call him Phil, which would just be weird.
And congratulations to Brodus, and we didn't talk about it last week, for landing a position with TNA Wrestling.
Good for him. Absolutely.
Good to see the big man, even if he's teaming up with Ethan Carter to the third.
Brodus was another guy. I never understood why they didn't find more for him to do in WWE. I mean, I saw his shoot interview after he got released, and he seemed like he was okay with it. He didn't seem like he was bitter about it. But, I mean...
But if they push him as a heel, over in TNA, which is what I'm expecting they're doing, considering who he's teamed up with, I think we could see a new side of Brodus Clay that I would say fans would like. Yeah,
and I wish him the best of luck because he seems like a good guy, and he seems like he has a lot to offer that he didn't get a chance to show. Well, let's wrap up this episode of Raw here so we can move on to other things. The last match of the show, Randy Orton versus John Cena. It's about time these two guys got to wrestle each other, Randy Orton and John Cena. They've, it seems like they haven't gotten a chance to wrestle nearly as much as they should have.
This should have been booked a lot harder.
Yeah. I'm glad I finally got to see Randy Orton versus John Cena just once in my life. And Kane and Rollins were at ringside, and Orton and Cena have their usual match, and they get a lot of time for this. Like they have like a really long ending segment for this main event match, which is nice. I like to see long matches. The crowd actually gets into it for some spots, but in other spots it seems like they couldn't care less. The finish eventually comes when Cena reverses an attempt at an RKO. He gets Orton into an STF, but before he can really lock it in and Orton can really be in any danger of submitting, Rollins and Kane run in for the disqualification, so Cena wins the match by DQ. And I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned beforehand, after Dean Ambrose attacked Seth Rollins the second time, he attacked him in the middle of the show after he interfered in his match. They locked Dean Ambrose in a room backstage. And it was a heavily guarded room. And every time they showed this room, the door was locked, and there were like 3 or 4 security guards standing in front of it. So Dean Ambrose was contained in a room backstage. Then after this Cena match is over, Orton and Kane and Rollins are triple teaming Cena in the ring, and they're throwing him out of the ring and beating his ass and tagging up on him. And it looks like they're setting him up to curb stomp him through the cinder blocks like they did to Roman, like they tried to do to Roman, and like they did to Dean Ambrose to put him out for a month. But when they lift up the timekeeper's table where they usually hide the cinder blocks, magically, there's Dean Ambrose hiding under the table. And he jumps up and he fucking kicks everybody's ass, and Cena teams up with him, and he and Dean Ambrose clear the ring, and the Authority are like backing up the aisle away, and the show ends with Cena and Ambrose in the ring together, which I thought was great. And I love that they gave Dean Ambrose such an important reveal, like a big role at the end. But Jesus, it just makes no sense at all. Like, it's such a cheat to establish completely certainly that he's locked in a room backstage, and then magically, for no reason, there he is at ringside under that table. What do you think of it, Doc?
I mean, yeah, a strong match between again against John Cena. We saw he wants to play a little bit more of a tough guy these days. Yeah. At least he didn't chuck any stairs around. And I do apologize when we were talking about the Dean Ambrose match earlier. I was talking about how things were all the cards were not stacked in his favor for this match, and it was really this match I was thinking of because you had Seth
Oh,
Rollins
sure.
and Kane down at ringside. As soon as you went into it and said, it, I was like, yeah, that was it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Dean Ambrose under the cinder blocks, is nobody ever double checked this shit. Really. If it feel a little bit lighter, I would imagine a huge stack of cinder blocks. You're gonna need a dolly or something to pull that stuff with. So I can only, I mean, who brought this down there? Didn't you think it felt a little bit lighter? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
somebody needs to be fired.
Well, I think they should have just gone complete like fucking Bugs Bunny cartoon, like Wile E. Coyote with it, and just cut to a shot of the room where Dean was trapped and show that like he dug a hole or something. You know, he tunneled his way out, and that's how he got out of the room. I mean, if you're gonna just throw reality completely out the window. Um, but yeah, it makes no sense. It's a total cheat to have Dean there for no reason with no possible explanation. But I really like the fact that they're using Dean in that prominent position. I just wish they would be a little smarter about it and actually put more of an effort into writing their fucking show to come up with a reason for him being there. Um, yeah, but
Well,
I
it
don't know.
was,
I guess so.
you know,
Go
they
ahead.
are on. Whoa, no, sorry, your video isn't moving, and it looked like you actually, your video is not moving with your voice, so I thought you weren't talking.
Oh,
uh,
am I?
uh,
Are we back? Are we back on track now?
No, you've been falling behind. I never can tell. It's
Oh
like
wow.
your mouth is moving while I move when I'm actually talking. It's funny, but I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I did you hear that apparently, at least as of right now, Brock is not scheduled to be booked for Hell in a Cell. So are they going to do? You think are they doing? Are you think they're going to do like Cena versus Ambrose versus Rollins, like a triple threat? I'm not sure where, or
Or
throw
see
Kane
who's
in there
number one.
somewhere. I'm not really.
Yeah, to see who's number one contender or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, that possibly could happen. I mean, obviously Dean Ambrose has been tapped because, and this is what I was saying here earlier. It's like writers are kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off because they didn't expect Roman to go out this quick, and then they had to, of course, pull. You know, where do we go? Where do we go from here? We want to make it fresh. We want to make it exciting. Got to pull Dean, away from what he's doing, his project, and try to plug him into all these little factions. What's going on, and try to build a little battle plan here because we need this for the future. It's constant writing for that show because they produce so many hours.
Yeah, boy, I think you sort of put your finger on one of the major problems with the product in general is that there's just too damn much of it. I mean, I know that it would be like taking food out of a baby's mouth at this point to suggest, maybe you shouldn't do as many shows because they make so much money off of the TV rights. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of shit that they're doing that's really making it hard to keep a storytelling flow going from week to week. Um, well, that was Raw. That was it for this week. Doc, why don't you take over for a few minutes here and tell us all about this week's Legend of the Week?
I would be happy to, Steve. Thank you. As you know, next week's legends on this show, you actually will need to go to facebook.com/wrestling with wrestling, and you will see next week's legend that we talk about. Usually within 24 hours, I will post that. I was a little slow last week, so. But this week's legend was born on July 18th, 1948, in Santa Isabel, Puerto Rico. He stood at 5'10" tall. He was 246 pounds. I am talking about none other than a man who has breeded some other great wrestlers as their dad, but I'm talking about Carlos Colon here, people. I would like to talk a little bit about Carlos Colon due to his admiration for wrestlers due to his admiration for wrestlers Antonio Rocca and Miguel Perez. Colon became a member at the gym they trained in New York, practicing wrestling moves and cleaning the place occasionally to pay for his dues. His dedication and affability helped him gain the respect of his peers as well as the occasional wrestling match. His first bout occurred in Boston, Massachusetts on February 16, 1966, when he wrestled Bobo Brazil. Colon was paid, actually, it's Cologne, or Cologne. Cologne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always, it never rolls off my tongue very well. I always keep doing it the other way. I want to sometimes say colon, cologne, Cologne. I'm sorry, people. Cologne was paid only $15 for his very first match. He eventually became an intermittent wrestler in the eastern states of the United States and in Canada, including one match in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in December of 1967 and several in 1968, over the following 3 years with Montreal as his place of residence. Feeling homesick and noticing a void in the Puerto Rican wrestling scene, Cologne returned to Puerto Rico in 1973. Cologne and Croatian-born wrestler Victor Jovica founded a promotional company, Capital Sports Promotion, which aired wrestling television shows each Saturday and Sunday on WAPA-TV. He wrestled during a time where local stars such as Barabbas, Black Georgie, and Miguel Perez Sr. shared the spotlight with international wrestlers such as Argentine-born Rocca, Cuban-born Huracan Castillo, and others. He set the stage for local stars such as Los Super Madicos, Los Invaders, and Chicky Star, which I love that name, Chicky Star. Brought them in to develop the company. His wrestling company was also responsible for inviting major American wrestlers such as Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, and others to wrestle in Puerto Rico. The nemesis of Cologne's character was Abdullah the Butcher, with whom he staged a long-standing feud with, which lasted actually about 2 decades. Cologne is quoted. Cologne is quoted as saying, "80% of blood I've shed in the ring, I've shed because of Abdullah." On January 6, 1983, Cologne defeated Ric Flair in a match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. However, the outcome of this match was not made official or aired in NWA television. Flair received the belt back in a Phantom title change that took place on January 23, 1983. Later that year, Cologne required hospitalization due to injury following a match against Bruiser Brody. Yeah, that's really no surprise there. This loss was publicized and made the covers of El Nuevo Dia and El Vocero, and I hope I said that one right, both of which are mainstream newspapers. 2 weeks later, Cologne defeated Brody in a rematch. In December 1983, Capital Sports Promotion began a feud between Cologne and Flair, which included a skit where the NWA Championship criticized Capital's title, claiming that he was the only real world champion. That sounds very familiar. Leading to a steel cage match to determine the undisputed champion of the universe. The encounter headlined an event in Bayamon on December 18, 1983. Cologne won cleanly, and the WWC World Heavyweight Championship was renamed to Universal Heavyweight Championship as a result. In subsequent interviews, Flair had stated that the NWA title was not on the line for this match because an official unification was proposed, but he vetoed it. On January 24th, 1993, Cologne made a one-night return to the WWF, then known by abbreviated name World Wrestling Federation, making an appearance in the Royal Rumble. After this, he decided to temporarily retire from professional wrestling, choosing to help train his sons, Carly and Eddie, who have followed Cologne into the sports. Carlos Colon appeared on September 11th, 2006 edition of WWE Raw for Madison Square Garden in the audience cheering his son Carly. I don't know why I say Carly. I guess his name's Carly. Known as Carlito in WWE. He also negotiated a deal for his other son Eddie Colon to work for World Wrestling Entertainment. Colon held a retirement ceremony at Aniversario 2008, which was organized in the Jose Miguel Argilat Coliseum on July 19, 2008. However, Colon left his retirement on September 8, 2012, defeating Felix Barbos Lopez in his return. So it sounded like an old rivalry cropped back up for him and brought him out of retirement. That happens sometimes. After Carly Colon turned on him and gained control of the heel faction, Colon joined Gilbert Cruz and Ray Gonzalez in a 3-on-3 match against his son, Lopez, and German Figueroa. I'll get to say, I'm an American. I'm a dumb American. Well, you expect me to talk your language? Now I've done lost myself here. Well, anyways, talking about the match with German Figueroa, but his team lost. On February 9, 2013, he lost to Savio Vega in a match for WWC's ownership. This evolved into a feud with the heel faction, while a secondary storyline involved a legal battle over the promotion. Colon defeated Jose Caritas Gonzalez to recover ownership of WWC, but lost a rematch the following month. At Anniversary 2013, he teamed with Stacy Colon and defeated Jose Caritas Gonzalez and La Tigresa Salalina Vargas. Colon announced another short-lived retirement. He returned at Lockout 2013, resuming this feud by losing to Caritas Gonzalez in an ambulance match, with both wrestling a no contest at Euphoria 2014. Colon's name began being rumored as a possible inductee to the WWE Hall of Fame in late 2011. Despite expressing joy at the idea of accompanying Pedro Morales, he dismissed this as a rumor and noted that WWE personnel had not formally contacted him. Ultimately, in 2012, they did not include him. The following year, Eddie and Orlando Colon noted that they supported a potential induction. On March 11, 2014, Colon was officially announced as part of that year's class. He's considered in the realization of a dream and admitted that at one point he began to doubt that he was ever being inducted. The class was actually completed by the Ultimate Warrior, Jake Roberts, Lita, Paul Bearer, and Mr. T, and former WWC Heavyweight Champion Razor Ramon, who they inducted him as Razor Ramon, not his real name, Scott Hall. He was inducted by his sons Eddie and Carly and nephew Orlando in an official ceremony held at the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Smoothie King Center. But really, I mean, that's all meat and potatoes on Carlos Colon. If I go any further on this report, my tongue's going to fall off.
I think you did great.
Oh, man.
It's been a long time since I was in Spanish class too, brother. Don't worry about it. Carlos Colon he's like the last of that breed of wrestler/promoters who, he's in the same sort of category as guys like Eddie Graham or Vern Gagne or Fritz Von Erich or Jerry Lawler, who owned their own companies or at least had creative control of the company and were also wrestlers and usually booked themselves to be the top star or at least one of the top stars and seemed like they just wrestled forever. I mean, Carlos Colon is still occasionally getting in the ring at his age, just like it seemed like, Vern Gagne wrestled until way long after he should have retired, and Jerry Lawler way long after he should have retired, and all these old promoters who were also wrestlers. Bill Watts would be another one I can think of. And he's of that class, and there's really no more guys like that left because the old big NWA territories are kind of gone now. And, there are a lot of guys on the indies who do this, who run their own company but also wrestle. But unfortunately, not very many of them are at the same level of prominence and success as Carlos Colon was. And I remember, when I was a little kid, I used to make my own paper cardboard championship belts. And one of the belts I made was called the Universal title. I always thought it was so cool that his company's top belt was called the Universal Championship. You're not just the champion of the world, you're the champion of the whole universe. It's like, how do you beat that? But he's definitely a legend. A really, really great pick for Legend of the Week. And why don't you tell us about your network recommendation this week?
Well, as always, I like to wrap my legend around my network choice of the week, and I just went red there.
Yes!
So let's turn me off and look at that wonderful picture of me.
Hell yes. Sons of Anarchy.
And turn me back on.
There we go.
This week I actually picked, I believe it was Starrcade 1980. Was it 1983? I chose, Steve, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the first one.
I forgot to mark the date on here. But yes, it was Starrcade 1983, and I did that because there is a great match on there between Abdullah the Butcher and Carlos Colon, our Legend of the Week. Apparently, this match wasn't allowed to be sanctioned in Puerto Rico, so Starrcade brought it to you, so you saw it there. So Abdullah the Butcher against Carlos Colon. And it's a really short match, but it was nice to see him wrestle and perform here in the United States, bring that feud that he talked about with Abdullah the Butcher there. The match is only 4 minutes and 30 seconds. But, hey, you got Charlie Brown on there, too, so that's definitely worth a look, because you got Charlie Brown going against the Great Kabuki with Gary Hart in his corner. You got Roddy Piper and Greg Valentine in a dog collar match. So check that out on the network. I mean, you got Ric Flair against Harley Race in a steel cage for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that show once before on here. I don't think it was ever a recommendation, but I think it was one of the things I talked about when the WWE Network first started. Like, it was one of the first shows I watched on the network. And I think Starrcade 83 is one of the best top-to-bottom wrestling shows I've ever seen. I mean, it's like all the matches you mentioned, like the Hammer Valentine versus Roddy Piper dog collar match is like a classic. The main event with Flair and Harley Race in the cage is great. There's Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat versus the Briscoe brothers for the tag titles, which is a fucking awesome tag match. It's just a great show. Like, if you've never seen Starrcade 83, I mean, you owe it to yourself as a wrestling fan to watch that show. It is an awesome show.
Yeah, I thought we talked about this before, because I was getting overwhelming feelings of deja vu. Like, I've been down this card before, but I've seen this actual card like 3 or 4 times since the network's going on, because it is a good show. So if I have to mention it, we have to mention it more than once, just so you may have missed the first time and don't feel like sitting through 90 minutes of blah 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 to get to our recommendations. So you might have sat through it this time, and there you have it.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's a great show. My recommendation is one of my favorite September pay-per-views from the last several years. This is WWF In Your House Mind Games, which originally took place on September 22nd, 1996. There were a lot of great matches on this show. Pretty good tag team match between Owen Hart and the British Bulldog versus the Smoking Guns. The Undertaker wrestled Goldust on this show. We were talking about how long Goldust has been around and how great he still is. Here's Goldust from the earlier part of his career, from 1996, wrestling the Undertaker. But the main reason to watch this show is this is the show that has the very well-regarded, famous match between Shawn Michaels and Mankind, which was one of the matches that really put Mick Foley on the map in the WWF as a guy to really take seriously, who could give you a really great match, who wasn't just a guy who jumped off the apron and dropped elbows on people or did like crazy bumps. He actually had great instincts and great timing and great value as a wrestler. And he had this amazing match with Shawn Michaels at In Your House Mind Games. So that's my recommendation for that. If you haven't seen that match, or if you feel like watching that match again, or if you've seen that match like on DVDs or something, but you've never seen the entire show, here you go. If you've got the network, check out Mind Games 1996. So there you go. As Doc said, check the Facebook group, check the Facebook page to see who the next Legend of the Week is. It will be revealed pretty soon. And that's it for us this week. We're going to be back next week to recap Raw again. We're on the road to Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell is the next big WWE pay-per-view, and we'll see how that shapes up. Apparently, Brock is not going to be on that show. So I assume they're going to do something with Ambrose and Cena and Rollins in the main event, and maybe throw Orton in there somewhere. I have no idea. Maybe they'll do like another Hell in a Cell match where they just throw 6 guys in there and just say, fuck it. But anyway,
I'd say Brock says, "Fuck you! I'm not going to Hell in a Cell to defend my title. I'm not going to do that, and you're not going to make me do that." So they put 6 guys in there and say, "Well, whoever wins this match is going to be the world champion." Put the threat there, but then Brock Lesnar comes down, barging down the ringside right at the end of the show, rips cages off the doors, and literally destroys everybody.
Now you're talking. Why don't they let us book this shit, Doc? I don't
Never know.
understand. They should
Hey,
let
you
us
can't.
book it.
They're too busy writing Total Divas, man.
Yeah.
They can't be paying attention to our stuff.
Let me book Total Divas. I'll book Total Divas. Anyway, Doc, thanks as always for joining me, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you guys for watching. We will see you again to do this all over again next week.